Hello, my name is Cheryl Erickson and I'm the Indigenous focused ECE instructor with Louis Riel Vocational College. Today in guidance, we will discuss teaching desirable behaviors through example. Before we get started though, I do want to remind you to read chapter 6 as this video is not a replacement for your chapter readings. So how do we teach desirable behavior? And it is through example, through positive role modeling that children learn acceptable ways to behave. So we are role models for children, and our role modeling can, if done incorrectly, be a negative experience. So we really want to focus on those positive things. It's those negative experiences that really impact children and can cause behavioral issues in children. So again, we want to be proactive. We want to teach appropriate rules, have clear expectations, set the tone for appropriate classroom practices. Teachers are, it's really important for teachers to develop those good relationships with the children. And so often children take on the interaction style of the teacher, and that is because of effective role modeling in most situations. So when we think about the theorists, we think a little bit about Vygotsky and his beliefs regarding social interactions for children. And he believed that children learned by 3 different styles of social interactions. And so instructed learning, where as adults specifically gave instructions and told children what they wanted to do or what they wanted them to do, versus collaborative, where we as a unit, myself or an ECE with children, engage in a collaborative type of game or activity to promote learning, as well as role modeling. So imitating learning is what is called role modeling. And so children really look towards adults as knowing what's right and what's wrong, or adults, they would view adults as always making those right decisions. So they look to us to really guide them, and they look at us as always making the right choices. And so that isn't always the case. But in an early learning environment, we really need to be mindful of that, because children are going to look at us as role models, and they're going to repeat and imitate the practices that they see us displaying. So another theorist's approach, and that being Bandura, was the social cognitive theory of human learning. And so again, imitation plays a big key in Bandura's theory, and he believed that most human behavior is learned from observing others. And really that's where children get their social cues as well, as they see how other children interact in social environments, and they see how we interact socially with their parents as well as their peers. And so they really start to imitate those types of behaviors, because they're learning that those behaviors in our environment are appropriate. And we're also trying to teach them and guide them in positive ways to eliminate appropriate behavior. So they're learning that as well. So the actions, they see us displaying are really key in terms of effective ways to deal with things. We don't want them to see negative interactions and think that that's appropriate. Bandura also refuted rewards and punishment to determine behaviors we imitate. And so we know that as far as appropriate ways to deal with behaviors, we're looking at more of the constructive process where we're wanting to teach and work with children. We want to offer them those hands-on experiences and learning through experiences, opposed to rewarding them again for things, doing things. We don't want them to always expect that there's going to be a reward, and again, punishment isn't something conducive to positive behavior management strategies. So when we look at disposition, we want ECEs to display a really good positive disposition. And that's because children really read into feelings. They watch how adults are interacting. They watch our facial expressions. They're at an age where they're starting to read body language as well. And so that's really going to affect how comfortable they are in the environment. So if we're giving off not good vibes, they're going to pick up on that, and it's going to cause them some mixed feelings and mixed emotions there, which isn't really a productive thing. So we want to show that we're happy to see the children. So those greetings in the morning, welcoming children into our environment, really sets the tone and is a good example. And I always think it's so amazing as children are starting in a learning environment and you're welcoming them in and you're saying good morning. And on those days where you don't see that child enter the environment, but they approach you and say good morning is a really good feeling, and that's really sets the tone and tells you that your practices of welcoming a child in are really working, or you hear them saying good morning to their friends is really nice. So that comes from appropriate role modeling as well. You're setting that example. Teachers should show empathy and caring for others. So ECEs that are sensitive and responsive are more likely to have students who are caring towards their peers. So really taking time to talk to children and get down to their level, showing that you care, you're interested in what they're saying, being respectful, model that acceptance, kindness. All those are really, really important practices, and children do pick up on that. And they learn the terminology through listening to the types of conversations you're having with the children. So they learn about caring and sharing. And those are just through again, conversations that maybe you're having at a mealtime and a child offers to share their lunch and you praise them for that act. It's how I'm so happy to see you sharing with your friend. I'm glad that you realized he was still hungry, or just those little conversations and putting labels on those acts as well, or those words, is really important. Not tolerating any type of bullying is huge. I know a lot of times in the education system, adults are wanting children to exert their independence and solve those problems for themselves. So in those situations where somebody is being unkind or hurtful, often the educators put it back to the child to solve that problem. And knowing that sometimes they don't have the skills, or they just can't fix that problem, they have to step in there and help eliminate that issue as well. So knowing that isn't going to be tolerated and set the precedent for that is really important. Combating bullying by fostering cooperation instead of competition. And again, that's why we really try to eliminate those games and activities that promote competition, because it is really a negative thing. So giving children the words in problem solving and labeling those feelings is really important in the situation where hurtful things are being said. We want to really eliminate and stop that child that is saying hurtful things, and hopefully they're understanding why it's inappropriate for them to do that. If they don't understand why or have that perspective taking, that empathy, it's harder for them to change what they're doing as well. So expressing feelings is very healthy. We're doing that nonstop in our environment because we know that it's healthy, as well as it's teaching children to understand their feelings, their emotions, and it helps with developing that self-regulation skills. So letting your emotions show, whether they're positive or negative, is healthy. You'll see more negative with the children. As adults, it's really good to express your feelings if you're not happy with a situation, but to do so appropriately and just simply telling the children why you're upset or you're unhappy with what's happening. And again, it's not the child being bad, but it's a choice that's been made that wasn't a good choice. And so explaining that is really important for self-esteem. So, and we do know children are imitating us as well, right? They're looking at us as positive role models. So just to be clear that when you're displaying your emotions, it really needs to be done in an appropriate way. And emotions are expressed in different ways. Emotions can be expressed with facial expressions, to be mindful of that, body language, and things like that. Children in preschool, older preschool, are really able to pick up that body language as well, and understand that body language is related to emotion. So there is a chart on page 130 of your text just to review, because it does explain that in a little bit more detail if you need some further clarification on that. As adults, not only important to express feelings, but to accept and acknowledge feelings is really important as well. It helps children to learn to deal with their emotions in healthy ways. Validation of feelings, especially in situations where you can't always change the outcome of what's happened, but for somebody to know, a child to know that their feelings are important, and you understand and you care about what they're feeling, makes them feel a little bit better. We want to help children label their emotions. So saying things like, it sounds like you're angry. It sounds like you're frustrated. So it gives them, again, words, expresses words related to how they're feeling inside. And that helps as they get older and they recognize those feelings. Then they can put the label to that feeling that they're able to express it appropriately. Listening to children while they're expressing their feelings is very, very important as well. Let them finish their sentence. Try not to interrupt or cut them off. It's really important that they get those feelings out. It's part of the healing process. And we do want them to heal and feel better, to move forward in what to solve the problem that's happening. So try not to talk them out of their feelings. Their feelings are their own. They're true. They're real. They're important. And so we really do need to validate that. A lot of times in society, and depending on your the environment you're raised in, like your family's culture, practices, boys can be treated differently than girls. And it's important that everybody, whether they're boys or girls, be allowed to express their emotions, because they're real feelings, and it's healthy to express those emotions. It's a process to start healing. And the only way you can do that is to to tell people how you're feeling or to let them out. So long are gone the days where boys don't cry, boys cry too. It's natural for them. They need to express their emotions. It's not healthy to keep things bottled up inside of you. It has to come out some way. Emotions have to be expressed some way, and it's best that if it comes out in a natural way versus bottled up and something inappropriate is said or something or is you lash out physically. So it's really important that we allow boys to express those emotions and help validate those emotions, put labels on them, and praise them for telling us how they feel is really important. And for girls, you know, that those labels of, oh, she's very emotional. No, again, it's the same practice. We have all different levels of how children and us as adults express our emotions. They're all unique to us, and we just need to be sensitive and listen to those emotions and help solve those issues. How can we model responsibility and taking some responsibility as well? So, you know, in daily practices as adults, we need to get down to the children's level, and we need to be responsible within our environment. And some practices like cleanup can be very, depending on where you're playing, there could be a lot to clean up. It can be very daunting and overwhelming to the children. So a good practice for an early childhood educator is to get in there in that environment and help the child. Play games like, I picked up 3 blocks, can you pick up 3 blocks? It passes the time and it gets the job done, and it shows the child again that you're there for them, you're listening, you're helping. It's teaching kindness. And maybe someday down the road that child is going to help you out as well, and that gives you that opportunity to share with them that they are being kind, and that's learning you know, a new virtue or new value. So it's nice. It should be reciprocated within the environment. And it shows them that you clean up as well, and it's not just the children that do that. Keeping promises is really important too. And if you tell a child you're going to do something, it's really important that you follow through on that. Children remember those things, and if you don't follow through, you're almost letting them down. You're losing some respect. It's going to take away from your relationship. So if, for example, you've promised the children that you're going to take them on a walk and go pick up sticks because you're going to build a fort, be prepared to act on that. And if you have issues that you think you might not remember that, then talk to the children about that and say, you have to remind me, remember we're going to do this. And you can probably rest assured that the next day, if that was the plan, that all the children that you talk to will come and remind you, and you need to do that. It's not fair to break promises, because that promise is going to be very important to the children. Other things in the environment that are really important as far as taking responsibility, and this is going to teach children to share responsibility, is caring for things in your classroom. So how you set up your environment is going to show children how you care. So things like labeling the shelves, keeping things clutter-free, appearance, neat and tidy and clean, all really is going to resonate with those children. And so those daily practices of reminding them that if you're playing with, for example, Lego, when you're done, it goes back on the shelves, and how we look after toys as well. We have to you know, play with them in a way that they're not going to get broken, because if they're broken, then nobody gets to play with them, and isn't that sad? So we need to take care of what we have is a really important rule within the center. And safe practices. So if you are decorating the classroom and you stand on a chair, is that necessarily a safe practice? And what would you say to a child that you would see standing on the chair the next day when you have done it the day before and now they've seen that and they're modeling it? So things like that are really important. Can you say to the child, it's not safe for you to stand on the chair? The chair could tip over, you could be hurt when you've done that practice the day before. So safe practices, if you're going to hang something up in the classroom, to not stand on shelving or chairs, to use a ladder. Those are really important practices as far as children will see that, and children are going to imitate it because you are a role model, you set the tone for what's right and wrong within that environment. Risk-taking is always an interesting conversation to have regarding children that you care for. I think as parents, we often allow our kids to take a little bit more risk because, well, we're their parent and it'll work on your level of comfort. It's a little bit different though when you're caring for other people's children, so your risks are going to be a little bit limited. If you're in an environment where you want to take, some risks, you want children to master new skills and participate in new experiences, that might be something that you write into your policies. That might be something that you have conversations with parents about. In terms of what kinds of risky play they might be participating in. So for example, if your playground has a lot of trees, we allow our children to climb trees if they can get up on their own. You might have rules about how high. I always let children climb trees, but I would only allow them to a certain height because if they got stuck, I needed to find a way to get them down, so it was within my comfort level. So things like that are really important discussions to have. Risk-taking has to be within safe parameters as well. So you don't want to, put a child in danger, but you want to offer them opportunities to reach different developmental milestones is more the risk type of taking that we have. So, in the environment, you can offer risk-taking by offering open-ended projects that using different types of materials. Maybe you're using glue guns, maybe you're using scissors, adult scissors, staplers, things like that. Hot glue guns pose, a bit of risk, but we're going to teach children how to use them safely. Sharing your knowledge, sharing safety types of rules. Experiences maybe where if you're using a hot glue gun where you got burnt, so you're preparing children that hopefully they won't do the same thing that you did. So you do want opportunities to try new things, but again, those have to be mutually agreed upon as well by parents. So that does conclude Chapter 6 of Guidance and Teaching Desirable Behaviors through Examples. Please do see your instructor if you have any questions about Chapter 6, as well as check in to ensure you haven't missed any handouts or assignments pertaining to this chapter.